You are joining us. It is Mayegun live. Thank you very much for joining me. Please, as a reminder, right, read beyond the caption of the broadcast. Read the description of the broadcast. Take your time. Then like the broadcast. Share it. To invite your friends and your not so friendly friends. Tell them that Mayegun today. And of course, you can sit back and relax to savor what I have brought to you this hour. Brethren, the Tifnumbu's camp, APC, Egbekegbe, as you possibly must have noticed, are in a serious frenzy as we speak, simply because Utomi, you know him, Patito's gang, right? So Utomi, the former ADC presidential candidate, and of course, the ally to Peter Obi, has dropped a bombshell, kind of, when after taking Tifnumbu's failed regime to the cleaners, and he went on to announce that the opposition are currently, planning, as in would, as a matter of time, right, that they are going to form their own shadow government. So shadow government is alternative government. So what Tifnumbu and APC, what they are currently offering you. Now, Utomi is currently in America, so he's not very close to the Nigerian borders. However, the Dokwemu stupid service quickly, right, dragged him to a court. And their case against him is that he's capable of inciting Nigerians against Tinubu's government to cause unrest by suggesting a shadow government, alternative government to Tinubu's. Meanwhile, sometimes in 2014, this was like 15 or 16 years ago, when the same APC, Egbekegbe, then as an opposition, threatened the then government that they would form their own parallel government if, by any reason, Goodluck Egbere Jonathan should declare himself the winner of that election, among many other promises they made him, including the Boko Haram to completely overrun Nigeria and Nigeria going into a civil war. That was how deadly and, should I say, lawless or daring the APC, Egbekegbe, they were. So, Utomi that appeared on, on one of these channels, TV's program, right, addressed the Tifnumbu's regime head on like this. So we're going to start with that tonight. What kind of prompted Tifnumbu's regime to move into a frenzy, like sort of like a scary mode, kind of, hearing that the opposition could actually will form their own parallel governments? It's about to get messy. Watch this.
It's possible. If we could only focus on issues, it will save us where we've come to in Nigerian politics. But there is a tendency to go ad hominem in the culture of the APC. If you get on the internet, one of the things you read there that I was saying about being born in the North, school in the West and all of that, and knowing Nigeria. If you got on social media, you would think Nigerians are haters of each other because the venom with which they're insulting people. This is Nigeria I grew up in. At Nsuka, as an undergraduate, they called me Yoruba boy. people didn't realize that I was actually Igbo, because 80% of my friends in Nsukka were Yoruba boys. And my politics have always been around Southwest type things. So to come to where we are in Nigeria today, for me, mentally, it's just not possible to reconcile it. Is this Nigeria that I know? Is this how people think of each other? It's not. So, it's clear that politicians have accentuated identity politics to be able to achieve personal goals. They don't seem to realize how much it has destroyed the country, torn its fabric, such that it makes achieving goals very, very difficult. It's like shooting yourself in the foot. But I don't know what their goals are. So I don't want to speak to Felix Morka's comments in any personal way. Let's take on the issues that he's brought up. First of all, about
the shadow government.
Shadow government being, what did you say it was?
In a presidential democracy.
Yeah. Nothing can be more democratic than a group of citizens getting together to say, let's find a structured way of asking governments to be more accountable. What could possibly be more democratic than that? I like it.
So
he came from a... Yeah. Anyway, let's leave that.
Okay, so let's get to some of the issues, and I want to ask some direct questions, Prof. One of my first direct question is, what is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu doing wrong? And where do you see that wrong action taking us to?
See, again, you come to an area that I don't want to personalize things. Let's take policy, specific policies, and look at how they have been implemented, how they have not worked. And I can speak to how that is not going the way. And in my statement, I dealt with a number of them. Look, let's take the issue of pain. The people are feeling pain. In our country, people are really dying, suffering. There's hunger in the land. The way government carries on, you will not believe that is the case. And I use examples. When the government bought a befitting presidential jet, we had a lovely 737 presidential jet, but we bought a more befitting one at a time when most of our citizens could not act out a bare human type survival. In our history, you can go back to 1976. As a young youth corps back then, we gave General Obasanjo hell for small things. But look at the kinds of things that he did. When oil prices dropped a few notches, he said that we could not afford to live the way we were living, that we had to cut our coat according to our cloth, not according to our size. He came down to a Peugeot 404 as the official state car. We know of a president in this world who drives around himself in his Volkswagen Beetle in Latin America. What is wrong with going even in your SUV? Why spend the kind of money we've spent buying this beast, whatever they call that monster that is now a new presidential car? Not talk of new jets. You can't be doing things like that and ask people to sacrifice. No, you lead by example. But it seems like the Nigerian political class thinks that it should be given everything to live luxuriantly at the expense of a dying people. That is not acceptable to me as a citizen. And I think that we must reverse those kinds of ways of thinking about public life.
Prof, we got here because of two policies. Removing subsidy from PMS, removing subsidy from FX in that sense, and now for Band A people, that subsidy is also gone in that sense. What could he have done differently? I mean, as a policy direction, because the argument they also have is to the effect that all the frontliners had made similar promises.
Yeah, which is one of the big lies about that. And I want to give a clear example. You see, petroleum subsidy was a source of big abuse. Now people go back to say, you see, you fought it under Jonathan. When the thing was fought under Jonathan, The point I personally made in 1911 or 12, when the demonstrations were taking place, is it is not about removing subsidy. It is the corruption that is called subsidy. Part of the reason they were doing it around that time is elections were approaching. They wanted the so-called marketing companies to take the advantage of this so-called subsidy thing to fund the PDP. You can play games whatever you like or not. It's the corruption that I've always criticized. Subsidy is 70% corruption. If you really are serious, okay, this government is unfolding all kinds of things in NMPC. Haven't I been shouting about this for forever? I, on this channel, said a couple of months ago that NMPC was the most opaque organization in the world.
Which is true. Now, let's take a look at a few things that Utomi tried to pass on, right? Identity politics has destroyed Nigeria. That is not a lie. Like, you are going to admit that Nigeria has never been this divided. It has never been. Or it has never been this divisively pronounced, if there is anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, today, the level of distrust, the mistrust between the supposed indigenous people of Nigeria is so clear that even if you want to live in denial, it won't take long before you are going to wake yourself back to reality and say, well, this is what it is. So he's not lying. And to people like him, his own generation, that wasn't the Nigeria they grew up in. And I quite understand. I didn't travel much when I was growing up, right? But I met a lot of other people from other places across that contraption when I was growing up. And it was nice. So the generation that had all of that, quite more like moved around, understands the contraption so much and all that, and watching the whole place to become what it is right now, I can only imagine, right? Now, you can point fingers, which is fine. You can point fingers to what role he played in all of this, which is fine by me, right? But that won't negate or void the opposition that, yeah, identity politics. And if you also want to be very honest, the people that came with identity politics, the politics of where you come from, right? I mean, those who reminded us that we are not the same, it's no other than this APC. The last 10 years of Nigeria, for those of you, some of you became politically active a year, 2 years, 3 years ago. But to so many of us who have actually been politically active for the last 24 years and watched how everything went up in smokes, and we are watching the old deterioration right now, right? You can tell how APC amplified and weaponized religious politics, identity politics generally. You know what I'm talking about, right? It got to a stage whereby they were calling the Eastern Nigeria 5 plots of land because Bukwari, the president of Nigeria, somebody who was supposed to unite the country, went on TV, right, to tell the whole world that he would teach these Biafrans, he would teach them the lesson that their parents failed to some of, to teach them. He said they are just dots in a cycle that can just be wiped off. He's talking about over 60 million of people, just like that. President of a country, somebody was supposed to unite you. And of course, that's kind of escalated to what we have today. Now that you have Fulani versus the Igbo, Yoruba versus Igbo, when you see those who are weaponizing this, especially on social media, they are no other than the APC, Ebekebes agents. Then they will start gaslighting you. That's what they do as well, in case if you don't know. They will accuse you of what they are doing, like what they are doing. They will accuse you of it. And they will stand by accusing you of it so that you will stop talking about them doing it. Gaslighting. Very good at it. So, what Utomi is not wrong, but democracy. Baba, you are lucky. You're supposed to declare you wanted. Shadow government simply means a government in waiting or an alternative government. So, with the failure of Tifnubu's regime that told people that they removed subsidies so that they could save some money for you, at the end of the day, you are still living in the austere state, austerity, while they are living very, very comfortably large. You are reading all the trillions, all the billions, tens of billions flying left, right, and center. Yet, more and more Nigerians are falling into poverty, deprivation, starvation, right? So he's right in that regard, but democracy. No, I mean, that's like, Baba, you are mixing it up. Nigeria is not practicing any democracy because what you have in Nigeria is a unitary system of government, militocracy. The government of the civilian managed by military, and that's what you have. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the people. So he's right when he said, the people have the right to form opinion. But in the Nigerian context, he's not right. I'm kind of surprised that they are not charging him for treason. But let him finish.
Organization in the world. Now, if we just seriously went and said, first thing, let's deal with the scam in this so-called subsidy, we would have removed 60% of what we call subsidy. Then we say, okay, having removed that, we don't want subsidy. What is left? How can we sequence the implementation that it does not trigger the kind of inflation that it did trigger? Yes, it will cause some inflation, but how can we manage it? So sequencing is a very critical part. Look, I was very involved in policy when we went through the structural adjustment program, and we talked about the J curve and all those lags. This will now kick in. And all that turned out to be a significant lie. It didn't kick in because there were many aspects of the process. And this is the new book I'm writing now, Why Some Nations Are Still Poor. Now, one of the most important things to put into the equation of an adjustment program of that nature is how to create markets. Clayton Christensen, with one of his former Nigerian students, Ojomo, and another of his students, wrote a book, The Prosperity Paradox. We have to focus on how do we create markets and how do we build entrepreneurs. It is those people who then fill in this pipeline. It is nothing automatic at all about, you remove subsidy, this, and then the economy will be good. It's lie. You create entrepreneurship, generate production, and with the production, as the pain is being felt, jobs being created, the exports that are taking place, providing foreign exchange, and you have a more balanced thing, and you grow your way out of that challenge. But not to have a strategy that includes all of this. It's a waste of time.
All right, Prof. One of the counter-arguments they always have at the macroeconomic level, they say when you look at the macroeconomics dashboard, it looks better than the administration of Muhammadu Buhari. So they pick up things like increase in FX reserve. They talk about, of course, we've cleared this IMF, although I think the charges are still there, but they've talked about this IMF we didn't default. They've also talked about the issue of using some of these funds for NEL fund. They also talk about record high revenue for subnationals through FAC, and a couple of other things they reel out as some of the gains in that sense of the removal of some of these subsidies. But it's going to take a bit of time, just like you said, for it to come to fruition. And so Nigerians should just calm down in that sense. Does that argument make sense to you?
And I am telling you that that's the same argument all of us made in 1986, and it didn't happen. Because the lag, so-called J-curve, doesn't just, turn. We found that it didn't turn. And this is why I'm writing this book now, to show that it doesn't turn. Because we've not created entrepreneurship. We've not created markets. We have not raised production. As far as I know, Nigeria is not producing even to deal with the situation with food insecurity. Because there is insecurity in the land, the farmers are not going to the farms. Even many farmers have forgotten how to farm.